Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today, we're digging into one of the most repeated lines you hear every October. Halloween just comes from the ancient Celtic festival of Samhain. End of story. It sounds neat, right? It sounds ancient, mysterious, and gives the holiday a clean origin point. But the real story is so much more interesting. Halloween, especially the version celebrated in the United States, isn't a single tradition passed down in one unbroken line. It's a remix. It's a cultural mashup built from multiple sources, reshaped by migration, religion, urbanization, and eventually, mass media. So, let's start with Samhain, because yes, it absolutely matters. Samhain was a crucial seasonal turning point for Gaelic communities in Ireland and parts of Scotland. It marked the end of the harvest season and the beginning of the darker, colder half of the year. For people living so close to the land, this shift wasn't just symbolic, it was intensely practical. It was all about food storage, making tough decisions about livestock, and calculating the risks of the coming winter. It was survival math. Over time, a rich body of folklore grew around that in-between feeling. When the seasons flip, people often feel a sense of vulnerability. They tell stories about the boundaries between worlds thinning, about the unseen getting a little closer, and about the need for protection. They lit bonfires to push back the darkness. Now, this isn't Halloween costumes and candy, but it is the emotional engine that later traditions could plug into. That powerful feeling that this time of year is different, special, and a little bit dangerous. Now, let's add the second layer, the Christian calendar. In medieval Europe, the church began to formalize days focused on saints and the souls of the dead. You had All Saints' Day on November 1st and All Souls' Day on November 2nd. The evening before All Saints' Day was known as All Hallows' Eve. Over centuries, that name compresses into the word we know today, Halloween. And here's the key part. When dates overlap, cultures blend. People don't live their lives in separate boxes labeled old customs and new religion. They stack their practices. They swap meanings. They keep what feels right and useful. So, that seasonal mood that existed around Samhain starts to share space with Christian observances tied to remembrance, mortality, and community rituals. Then comes a third layer, which introduces older door-to-door traditions that start to look surprisingly familiar. In parts of Britain and Ireland, there was a practice called sowling where people, often the poor, or children, would go from house to house asking for small soul cakes in exchange for offering prayers for the souls of the dead. There were also traditions of guising, where people wore disguises or costumes, performed small acts, told jokes, or did little tricks as part of the holiday season. Now, that's not exactly trick or treat, but you can see the structure is there. A costume, a neighborhood route, a social exchange, and a kind of ritualized performance. The modern version didn't just appear out of thin air. It evolved from patterns that already existed across Europe. Now, the story crosses the Atlantic Ocean, and this is where Halloween truly becomes the Halloween that most people recognize today. The version that dominates global pop culture is overwhelmingly the American version, and it took shape because of uniquely American conditions. In the 1800s, especially following the Great Famine in Ireland, the United States saw huge waves of Irish immigrants who brought their seasonal customs and stories with them. Scottish immigrants brought their traditions as well. But in America, these traditions didn't exist in a vacuum. They met other groups, other churches, other local rules, and a completely different social environment. The holiday didn't stay pure. It couldn't. It adapted to survive in a vibrant, mixed society. Even the most iconic symbol of Halloween shows this incredible adaptation. The jack-o'-lantern. In parts of the British Isles, people carved lanterns, but they were often made from turnips, potatoes, or other root vegetables. They were small, gnarled, and frankly, a bit creepy. But when these traditions arrived in America, people found a new canvas, the pumpkin. Pumpkins were native to the continent, easier to find, much easier to carve, and visually way more dramatic. So the tradition didn't just travel, it upgraded. That is a perfect snapshot of what American Halloween does. It takes an older idea and reshapes it with whatever the new environment has to offer. By the early 1900s, Halloween in many American towns had developed a reputation for some pretty rowdy mischief. And I don't mean cute, harmless pranks. I mean destructive vandalism, sometimes genuinely unsafe behavior. This is where the holiday takes a very sharp and important turn toward the modern version we know. Communities, civic groups, schools, and parents all started to push back. They tried to tame Halloween. The goal was to redirect that chaotic energy into something safer and more organized. The solution? Parties, parades, costume contests, and community events, especially for children. Instead of being a night where chaos happens, the goal was to make it a night where kids go out, get treats, and everyone plays along in a safe way. Over time, this social agreement becomes the modern trick-or-treat system we see today, a controlled, predictable ritual that channels all that festive energy. After World War II, this format absolutely exploded, and for a simple reason: the rise of the suburbs. The classic American suburban neighborhood, with its grid of safe streets, houses close together, and tons of families with kids, was the perfect environment for trick-or-treating. The layout practically invited a neighborhood root. Halloween became a perfect community event because the very design of post-war America supported it and made it easy. Then, the final, powerful ingredient shows up, the one that turns a single holiday into an entire season: mass media and big business. Candy companies realized this was a massive opportunity. Costume manufacturers, decoration makers, TV specials, horror movies, and themed events at amusement parks all jumped in. Halloween became scalable. It stopped being just a date on the calendar and transformed into a commercial and cultural Halloween time. It developed a recognizable aesthetic that everyone understands. That specific shade of orange light, carved faces on pumpkins, spooky music, masks, monsters, and a sense of playful fear. And that's why the simple claim that Samhain equals Halloween just doesn't hold up as a full explanation. Samhain is a vital part of the puzzle, yes. It's the ancient, emotional core. But the Halloween we know is a rich, complex blend of seasonal folklore, Christian calendar traditions, European social rituals, immigrant communities reshaping their old customs in a new land, American cities trying to control disorder, suburbs making the ritual easy and accessible, and modern media turning the whole thing into a shared national vibe. So the next time someone says, "Oh, Halloween just comes from Samhain," the better answer is, Samhain is one ancestor, but Halloween has a whole family tree, not a single parent. And honestly, that makes the holiday so much more interesting, not less. It's living proof that our traditions don't just survive by staying the same. They survive by evolving into something new that people can actually use socially, emotionally, and culturally generation after generation. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.